Hey y'all, Palmer Toms, Rusty Mansell, live here from Nashville, Tennessee at SEC Media Days. Rusty, you've been out mixing and mingling on Radio Row. I've listened to Kirby Smart and the Georgia players in the main room.
Yep.
What are your main takeaways from today?
I think Kirby, faced a couple questions about, the speeding tickets and those types of things. You guys had a meeting with him last week and kind of addressed that. I think the players got questions today, and I think for the first time in a long time, the University of Georgia football team got questions about football.
Yeah, and it was nice to hear it. It was nice to ask them because, like you said, it feels like it's been a while that football has been a conversation. And Kirby said this offseason, this calendar year, they've experienced the highs of highs, winning it all in LA, and then the lows of lows. With obviously the tragic events of the accident in January and the offseason that's unfolded, it certainly has been nice to talk football. And I guess, for me, just thinking about the biggest storylines of today, obviously injury updates, housekeeping there. You've got Smile Munden and Branson Robinson.
Which are two very, very good football players in two critical positions. So
leading tackler of last season, and then a running back that you were expecting to take a major leap, losing your leading rusher from last year. Both those guys are not going to be full go for the start of fall camp, according to Kirby Smart. Didn't quite know if they were going to miss some time. He said he thinks that was the expectation at one point. Wasn't sure if that was still the expectation. Certainly interesting to hear that. And it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. Mykel Williams, though, last year's sack leader who missed a good portion of spring practice, he did say would be full go for fall camp. Not quite full go just yet. Kendall Milton, who missed a good portion of spring practice. And again, that running back position you mentioned, it's depth is a little bit of concern there. He is full go. Mykel will be full go. And that's news that you absolutely love to hear if you're a Georgia fan.
Yeah, Mykel Williams, who could have been maybe the number one player in the country in this class coming out. You look at I love Paris Johnson. The Paris Johnson should have been a first-round draft pick from Ohio State last year, but you look at a true freshman, and he got into Paris a couple times in that semifinal game in Atlanta. So you got to love Mykel Williams, a kid that Georgia, had. He was a silent commit. I went and shot the video. A couple weeks later, he commits to USC, and then Georgia ultimately gets him back, which was, look at that, how big a piece of puzzle he could be this year for Georgia off the edge. I think Mykel Williams saw an on-3 release their preseason All-SEC team today, and he's already on that SEC team.
And deservingly so, based off of what he did as a freshman and the potential of what he could do as a sophomore and going into a junior year where he, we could be talking about a potential number one overall pick type player. Yeah. Obviously, quarterback is a premium position, but edge rusher is right up there as well. Other big news: Smoke Bowie away from the team. Georgia transfer pickup.
Yep.
Just your thoughts there.
Well, you look long term and what would that do kind of for the depth, but I don't think anybody really thought that Smoke Bowie was going to be a guy that was going to give Georgia some meaningful minutes. He might have been on special teams earlier this year, and look, very talented kid. Now being the Texas A&M, doesn't even make it to the season at Georgia, so kind of wish him the best. Hope he gets things squared away from him, because he's a really, really talented football player.
Yeah, and here listening to Kirby talk about that, you could tell that was one that maybe hurt him a little bit more, being
hometown kid.
both from Bainbridge.
Went high school with his mom, so wouldn't like Kirby didn't know that kid, know the history, kind of knew it well as a Bainbridge Bearcat, but no longer at Georgia.
Yeah. I think that when you listen to what Kirby had to say at the podium and what the players had to say as well, players today being Brock Bowers, Cedric Van Pran, and Kamari Lassiter, the three representatives here in Nashville. Kirby's message is success doesn't sleep. What was it?
So what do you say? Better never rest.
Better never rest.
Yep. And,
success doesn't sleep sounds like something he'd say too.
Yeah, that was a good game. I was like, did you really say that too? But better never rest.
Better never rest.
You can tell it was so funny because I tweeted it out, and immediately everybody said, here's the quote.
Yep.
Here's the quote for the year.
Yep. Last year it was, we're not going to be hunted.
Yep.
This year it's better never rest. And he talked about that complacency factor again. A word that you heard a lot last year this time. coming off of a national championship. Now they're coming off of a second straight national championship, and you're hearing a lot of the same conversations. How is Georgia going to battle, the complacency factor? And again, just no fear of complacency there. These players, again, and you're talking to players that really have earned it. I mean, Cedric Van Pran, potential, first interior offensive lineman taken. Brock Bowers, a top 10 pick. Kamari Lassiter could be a first rounder. These are guys that have earned it and been major contributors, but they don't act like it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's a very high compliment that Georgia chose them to represent the university in something like this, because they understand the magnitude of the amount of media and the questions, and what really one wrong quote could be turned into real quick bulletin board material for somebody. So it says a lot about having those 3 kids here.
Yeah, and Kirby said, that there were a lot of potential options there, and that it was really hard to choose. And he talked about the difficulty that it is, how difficult it can be to be a leader. The cost of leadership is what he called it, and said that there's a lot of leaders on this team, and I think that that speaks volumes about where Georgia is at going into this 2023 season. Last year there were the questions about who are going to be these leaders. You lose a Jordan Davis, a Nakobe Dean, a Jamari Salyer, guys like that. You lose all those guys. This year you're losing talented players and absolutely are losing leaders, but you've got a lot that had to step into leadership roles last year, and I think that speaks volumes about where Georgia is at headed into this season. I guess, Rusty, as we kind of wrap up here, any final thoughts as we're starting to wrap up the day here in Nashville?
Talk, you see the background here. I love this city. We've got the pool over here. We don't get to get in the pool. We'd love to. See Union Station Hotel right behind us, super nice. But man, for me, when Georgia's done today, it's football season. We've got a couple more days, and it's time to go.
And I think for me, one of the bigger takeaways is just listening to these other SEC coaches. You hear them all talk about Georgia, Alabama, Georgia. Those are the 2 programs that are the standard in this conference. That's who everyone's trying to be, and those preseason polls. We get our ballots tonight, so we'll put those votes in. We'll keep y'all updated with what our expectations are for all SEC and predicted order of finish. But then come Friday, we'll likely be hearing Georgia as the preseason number 1 pick.
Yeah, probably imagine so. Yeah.
So, folks, y'all can keep up with us over at DawgsHQ. Great time to come check us out. Football season's coming up. Recruiting never stops. You know that better than anybody, Rusty. And just added Jeremy Johnson to the staff. Got a great group going, and y'all should come check us out. So DawgsHQ.com, part of the On3 network. Thanks, y'all.